afternoon, everyone. I'm Aubrey. I am a marketing communications assistant at Untouchables, but used to work in recruitment. So near and dear to my heart to be able to be continuing to share and help with the recruitment side of things through these presentations. This is Nina. You can see her in the list, and she'll take over here in a moment with presenting. She's a recruitment consultant at our Utrecht office. So we've worked together on this to put together this presentation and to hopefully get some great tips for all of you in your application and job search process. A couple of just quick things for housekeeping. Like I said, if you can keep your microphones off until you have something to say, then that's great. Also, if you have something to say, go ahead and use the raise your hand icon so that we can see that you have that and make sure to get to you. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end. So the easiest thing is probably if you save questions for the end and then use the raise your hand at that point. However, if you have questions in the meantime or something isn't working, go ahead and set them in the chat or raise your hand. If you put things in the chat, we'll also try to get to those during the Q&A, but it's easier if you put them in closer to the end so that we don't have to scroll all the way back in case there's been other things happening in the chat in the meantime. But of course, if you have something that's a bit more urgent or something that was recently said that you need that you didn't hear or that wasn't that you didn't quite get, then you can feel free to put that in the chat or let us know by raising your hand as well. So that's it for housekeeping. I'm gonna then hand it over to Nina, and she'll let you know a bit more about how the webinar is going to look today.
Yes, then also hello from my side. Okay, yeah, welcome to the webinar. Super nice to have you here this afternoon. Then I will quickly, give you an overview over what we are going to talk about today, in our agenda. Yes, so we first start with the topic about rejection, because of course, in the process of applying, it is also totally normal that there will come rejections in. So we will talk about a bit what is essential to keep in mind. We will also quickly talk about mindset, which is a big part and a vital part in the application process to keep it positive. And that's not always easy. Then we will give some recruiter insights. We will kind of help you to think like a recruiter and to get a bit more insights of how we look at applications. Then Aubrey will talk about training, communication, tailored applications, and then she will give some CV and cover letter tips in the end. And then, we finish it up with the Q&A. And then I think we will dive right in and start with rejection. So how to deal with rejection? We actually came up with a couple of points we think are important. So in the whole process of applying, of course, patience is key because it can take a long time. Then also don't take it personal because it isn't personal and it shouldn't be personal, of course. Really ask for feedback, especially if you have interviews going. It's important and good for you to get feedback afterwards, that you can implement it along the way. Then, of course, think like a recruiter, try to keep that in mind. We will get into that a bit later. During the application process, try to review it again and again to see how can you do something else. Also, maybe good to make a plan in case it takes a bit longer. You don't have any job yet. Maybe, you need some side jobs or whatsoever. And then also don't hesitate to ask for help, because I think that can also be something sometimes hard to do. And we will also talk about networking, because networking, especially also in the Netherlands, is a big part of finding a job. A lot of things or jobs will be filled via, but that's not only in the Netherlands like that, also in other countries, of course. Then, talking about patience is key. I think we all know it. Application and finding a job is not always the nicest thing to do. And especially it is not easy in the Netherlands, not for Dutch, but also not for internationals. And if you're an international and you come to the Netherlands, you most probably do not speak Dutch yet fluently, then of course the job market is a bit smaller for you, because yeah, the jobs that are in the country itself require a lot of times Dutch, and yeah, there are less that don't require Dutch, but still they are there, and you have a unique selling point with your national language that you speak. It's a bit depending, of course, what is asked, and some languages are frequently asked and some are less. But it can be a unique selling point. And keep in mind, on average, job search can take 5 to 6 months, but also longer. Now you're in a different country, or you will go into a market of a different country, like in the Netherlands, and that might make it even longer. Then some general challenges to keep in mind as well if you're not living in the Netherlands yet. A lot of people, probably also some of you, are not settled in the Netherlands yet, have a concrete plan, maybe a not so concrete plan. And that gives, of course, uncertainty. On the one hand, of course, it gives you uncertainty because you have to find a house, an apartment, somewhere to live. You have to find a job. You have to deal with all the bureaucracy that is out there. But you also have to get to know the culture, etc. But for the company, of course, you also have to keep in mind, not all of them are really open to do it, to hand you over a contract. If they don't know that you have a certain plan already to relocate, it's not for sure that you find a house, because here in the Netherlands, I don't know if all of you are aware of it, but we do have a chronic housing shortage here in the Netherlands, and quite high prices. And that's of course in the Randstad, so in the big cities like Rotterdam, Utrecht, Amsterdam, Den Haag. But in general, it's not easy, even though you try to be outside the cities as well. Then also it can come to a culture shock, which when it can happen as soon as you move here, can happen along the way. So that additionally can create uncertainty on the side of the company, and why they're maybe not willing to hire you if you don't have a concrete relocation plan, or no network here, or you haven't lived here for longer, or you don't know the Netherlands as well, or if they feel that you didn't do enough research about the company, the company, but more the country, I mean, or the culture and how it is to live here. Then, of course, language requirements play into it as well. As I said before, there are specific jobs that might be not as frequent with the languages, only English, or in combination with the language that you speak, or so that is also, of course, something. And for everyone who's not coming from an EU country or doesn't have a valid work visa, it is quite challenging to find a job in the Netherlands with sponsorship. They are there, and there's this IND list. We have also a link in the presentation later, where you can look at a list which companies can sponsor. But again, not all of them will sponsor them as well. It's really a bit dependent on which skills are here in the market, and they can, of course, get people or not, and if it makes sense to pay the additional fee and sponsor. And then, of course, the job market in the Netherlands also changes. Sometimes some jobs are more asked, and sometimes they're less available. Then, as I said, it's really important. Don't take it personal if you get a rejection. Please also keep in mind we recruiters are also human beings. We have feelings, and we also don't mean it in a mean way. So we also try to balance it. And we, of course, would love to help all of you and find you the right job and make it work. But yeah, we also have some requirements we have to stick to. So please also, even if you feel frustrated by it, we feel you, but please don't write an angry email at us, to us. It would, we experience that unfortunately a lot. And we do understand, of course, your frustration, but it's not that we do it out of, that we're like mean people or something. So please keep that in mind. You're welcome to ask for constructive feedback. And we love to give you feedback. We try our best to answer all the questions or give feedback. There's, of course, a lot of people that ask for it. And it sometimes also takes time, and sometimes it is not as specific as you may wish. Then, especially when it comes to interview processes, really keep in mind asking feedback afterwards, especially when it's a rejection. Not all companies give it, but we as an agency really try to work as closely as we can together with the companies and the departments and the manager, so that they really give us personal feedback that you then hopefully can implement in your further process, interviewing and application process. Then, of course, if you do like apply for a long time, it's also good to sometimes stand still and review your job search process. Maybe think about, okay, what have I done so far? What could I change? What kind of job am I looking for? And do I really tailor also CVs to the job that I apply for? Did I really make sure that it's clear for the recruiter? I do have, you maybe think, okay, I do have these skills, they're transferable. But if you don't put them on your CV, for example, we can't read behind it. And so it's good if you constantly think about it as well again. And maybe also there, ask for help, input from friends, family, or someone you know that maybe is good in giving feedback and is also very open to give constructive feedback, and doesn't keep it back, let's say. Make a new plan, for example, in case, as I said, if it takes long and you maybe don't have a job when you arrive here in the Netherlands yet, think about, are there any steps I can take in between? Like, for example, you need a job in between just to earn the money. Look for, maybe you want to work in the horeca, which is in the restaurant or hospitality area, to keep your, keep things flowing, let's say, and then see what skills could I develop further and are needed for the job that I in the long run want to get. That is maybe your dream job. It could be also, for example, I have worked before as logistic account manager, which is something else than recruitment. And I thought, okay, how can I get there? So I thought, okay, I will do some volunteering. So I joined a Dutch volunteering organization, and I volunteered for a while. And there, on the one hand, I developed my Dutch skills further because I could finally speak a lot of Dutch there. And I also could, look into recruitment, help there. And it was not, recruiting, let's say, employees, but volunteers. And that helped me, of course, to at least get some view of it and develop some skills there and experience. And that is something that you can try yourself as well. or in case maybe an internship that you work 32 hours and 1 day internship to get some more insights there. And also through, of course, volunteering and also internships, you can build a network again. You get to know new people, and maybe through that, someone knows someone and can help you find a job, or at least someone you can talk further about the job that you want to get into, and the person could maybe give you more insights what skills you still have to develop. Then I said as well earlier, mindset is key. It is easy to lose a positive outlook and stick with a good mindset. And what is a mindset actually is a series of self-perceptions or beliefs people hold about themselves. And these determine, of course, your behavior, your outlook, and your mental attitude. For example, you believe that you can do something or learn something or not. And that also, helps you to develop a new skill or not. Because if you constantly think, I can't do it, then you will probably not put as much effort in it, or you try not as hard, or you're more busy with feeling sorry, or have the belief that you can't do it, and that's not really helpful. And speaking about that, in psychology, a lot of times we speak about a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. So fixed mindset is really fixed mindset is that personality traits don't change, so that you believe, for example, a genius, you have to be born a genius and with certain skills, for example, communication skills, and they're fixed. You can't do anything about it. You either have them or not. And then, of course, there's the growth mindset, where you think, hey, I have certain skills, and there maybe I'm really developed in already. I really have, for example, really good empathy for people, really good people skills, but my communication skills, maybe I'm not there yet. And I will put more effort in, I will practice more, I will hold presentations in front of friends, family, or even online. And then I see over time, I get better in it. And why do I tell you about growth mindset and fixed mindset? Because people with fixed mindsets tend to take it more personally. And the more they get rejected, the more it can harm your self-esteem. And the lower in the process your self-esteem gets, it can, of course, harm then again when you're in interviews and you already go into the interview with thinking, hey, I can't do it, or I'm not worth it, or whatsoever, then it can be that you present yourself like this. And then you might get a rejection because you projected to the other person, I can't do it. So keep that in mind. And it's maybe also nice to read a bit more about it. There's a very nice book about it. And we will also put it in a presentation and send that later to you. Then don't hesitate to ask for help. It's always good if you come at some point to the conclusion, I can't do it myself anymore, or I'm so frustrated, I don't know to do, like, what to change anymore or what to do additionally. There are a lot of job coaches out here in the Netherlands, and a lot of them are also specialized in helping internationals here in the Netherlands to find a job. And of course, they know how different that is than maybe for a Dutch speaker. I'm sorry. Of course, as I said before, it's also always good to ask others for help. Let them review your CV, practice your interviews with yourself in front of the mirror until you have it. Prepare the questions up front. Really get to know the company you're invited for the interview, and be a specialist about it. And if you feel, you usually are nervous before, then it's a nice way to practice in front of the mirror. It feels very weird in the beginning, but it can help you. Yeah, as I said before, in the Netherlands, but also in other countries, it's a very important or a very good way to find a job is networking, and that increases your chance to find a job. It can be, it's not that it has to be, but it can help. And as I said before, a lot of vacancies are still filled with internal employees, or also via. And you can do that via LinkedIn. There are other specific apps. We have also the links back in the presentation, in the back of the presentation. Through that you can also, as I said before, get to learn the job where you want to land. So then, speaking about all that, how can you think like a recruiter, or what questions can you ask yourself? So for the ones that not live, currently do not live in the Netherlands, and are either from an EU country or not EU country. Of course, for EU, you have a valid work visa because you can work in the Netherlands from the EU. But for the other ones, please make sure, do your research. It's not easy to find out all the specifics about visas, but there's a very nice section on our website where we explain and list also all the visas. We have also a link to the government website where you find even more information. Please do your research up front, and I know it's not easy to understand, and keep in mind, we as an agency, we are not specialized to help you with getting work visa. We expect or have to have you like to be able to give you a job, you have to have a work visa. Then if you have already like relocation plans, please, if you apply and it's not clear and you still live abroad, put an application letter together and quickly write in this application letter, hey, I'm going to relocate to this city in the Netherlands at that specific point of time. And and then also write about which visa you will have, and all those things, explain them, because that helps us, of course, to know what's going on, because we are not aware of it when we only have your CV in front of us and no further information. That I said as well. If you're willing to relocate and you live in the Netherlands or not live in the Netherlands yet, also then say you're willing to relocate in an application letter, and then also make sure that we know you have researched it, and also where you intend to go. We always ask also the question if you're aware of the job market, and we try to figure out more specifically, if the plan is clear or not. Then, as said before, please, try to tailor your CV to the position you apply for, because it can be, of course, that you have nice experience, but it should also be on the CV, and it should also be specified. For example, if you work in customer service, there are two different kinds of customer service. You can work in B2B or B2C. That makes a difference. Put in if it's B2B and B2C or B2B. Or transferable skills. Put the relevant information for the job in. leave the not relevant information out. So you don't have to list all your certificates or courses that you have done, or etc. If it's not relevant to the job, leave it out. It's too much and it doesn't matter to us. It's great that you've done it. You can be proud of it, but it is not relevant for us. Also make sure if you have specific software experience and in the position that you apply for, it's handy to know it. Then we can see, hey, you work with SAP. And now Oracle is, for example, asked, then we can say, hey, you did work with SAP before. Yeah, should be not too hard to work in Oracle. Yeah, so plus points and red flags. We kind of made a list together with all our recruiters, and they said what helps them, what is our like big plus points, let's say, when you share your CV with us, and what are really red flags. Some of the plus points are, as said before, and you probably have read that a lot of times before, keep it short and simple. Try to emphasize on the things that are important for the CV and for the specific job, and put those in and leave others out. Preferably use also bullet points. It's also nice to describe it, of course, but describe them then accurately and short to the point. Include voluntary work or internship if they're really relevant for this specific job. If not, leave them out. It just makes it too long. Make it personal, so put your own touch at it. If it's a design, if it's a clear design, of course, or also like writing the personal statement that really fits to yourself and your personality. It doesn't have to be too professional. It should also reflect yourself, but it should, of course, also be understandable. Emphasize on your most relevant experience for the job, and be consistent with font size and type. Don't be too colorful or mix it too much. That comes maybe across very creative, but that doesn't help us to read your CV better. Also mention on your CV if there is a gap in your CV. Life happens, but please put it in. Explain shortly if it was because of COVID that happened, a lot of unemployment was going on, or you took a time off because of whatever reason, put it in there. It helps. And please check really for errors. It can happen, but rather check it. It gives a better first impression. Really red flags that were called out were that you include people include sensitive information. That's not good for you, not good for us. In general, doesn't fit to data privacy. So we don't need your BSN ID, passport numbers, or copies or whatsoever in your CV. Please leave them out. Also, no bank account numbers or whatsoever. Don't put your salary on your CV. We do have specifically for untouchables, when you upload your data, a field where you can put your salary indication in. Please leave out unprofessional personal pictures. We will, because of data privacy reasons, delete them anyway, but sorry to say it like this, but we don't need a selfie from you from like a party or whatsoever. It's not necessary, and it might give a bad impression. Reason of leaving the company, that doesn't have to be in there either. And please don't lie. That is also not necessary. Be transparent. We are all humans and we do understand it. Preferably not a too long CV, not more than 2 pages. We always recommend, and as I said before, don't list irrelevant courses, certificates, or general information. It's not necessary, and doesn't need to be in there. Have your CV checked by a native speaker in case that is possible, because it enhances the language, and it can also help getting rid of mistakes. Put in references on request. Please state your level of languages from with the official grading scale from A1 to C2. It's not necessary that you put A1 languages in, because if you speak them, that's great. If you know some of it, it's also good if you just put in the languages that are really needed for the job, and also that you speak professional enough to work in it. As we said before a couple of times, plus point is if you're tailor your CV to the job position, then it should be all the relevant information and transferable skills. And put in some specific information in if that is something that you had before, for example, with customer service, B2B or B2C, that we know. And software experience. Then another couple of red flags, please put exact dates in. So not only 2016 to 2017, please at least then say September 2016 to August 2018. Job hopping, that can of course happen, and we all, as I said before, we're just humans, and sometimes you just don't like the job, and then you have to try, but be able to explain it, then we understand. CV gaps without explanation, not always nice, can raise questions. Or too long explanations, and please also don't apply for vacancies without speaking the required languages. If there is, like, for example, a vacancy with inside sales for German, and there's it says German in the headline, then it's that the language is needed. And it's nice that you maybe want to learn the language, but if you apply for a position with the asked language, you have to speak that language in that level at that specific time. Otherwise, you will not be a candidate that will be invited for an interview or for going further in the process from the company. Then we are not allowed to discriminate. We don't discriminate, and Aubrey will say a bit more about this.
Yes, great. Thanks, Nina. To pick up on this, Nina named a lot of challenges that can happen when you're looking for a job in a new market. And all of those remain true. And one thing that should not ever lead to rejection is discrimination, things on the grounds of religion, beliefs, political opinions, age, race, gender, disabilities. Not everything is written here. For instance, this also applies to sexual orientation. So anything that is a part of you that does not affect your job performance is not something that you can be discriminated on against. So if you ever run into that, please know that's not an accurate rejection, and that something should be done about that. There are a lot of rules and laws in the Netherlands to make sure that this doesn't happen. And especially as a recruitment agency, we're really careful about this, both internally, but also with the companies that we work with. So if a company comes to us and asks for, sometimes they make a mistake and say, we're looking for someone under a certain age or something like that, then we always either stop working with them or work to educate them about not discriminating, and we help them to make sure that they're not discriminating or rejecting someone on that basis, because of course that's not a fair rejection. So keep that in mind if this happens. Of course, keep in mind that there's a little bit of common sense involved. For instance, you can't be discriminated against based on a disability. However, if you apply for a warehouse position and you're in a wheelchair and cannot lift above your head, and that's required for the position, it is possible to be rejected, but that's based on the fact that there are certain requirements for that job that you are not able to fulfill. That's different, of course, than just being rejected because of a disability. In this case, it's still rejected based on job performance. But in most cases, you will know the difference between job performance versus discrimination based on a part of you. So keep that in mind. Just a quick thing to show how we do that as an agency. We take off the picture. So of course, it's always nice to have your picture on your CV, and especially you should have a professional picture for your LinkedIn. So it's not that you have to take it off yourself, but we always take that off just as an extra precaution. Take off anything that indicates age, nationality, marital status is also unnecessary, family structure. We also use neutral language wherever possible. For instance, we refer to your partner as your partner and not using gender terms, just to make sure that everything is as neutral as possible and that your work experience and your education are the things that shine through, and not anything that might make it so that an employer has the opportunity to discriminate. So also the Dutch government does a lot for this as well. They'll even call to recruitment agencies and act like they're a client putting out a vacancy, and then they will discuss the vacancy and also state something that has to do with discrimination. For instance, we're looking for a woman under 25 or something like that. And of course, we as an agency wouldn't accept that from a normal client as well. So we always reject that. But that's a way that they test all of the agencies in the Netherlands. They call every once in a while to make sure that recruiters are not accepting vacancies that allow discrimination. So keep that in mind with all the rejection. There are plenty of reasons that rejection is hard enough, and discrimination should not be one of them. So if that happens, you can report it. Now, okay, now we've talked quite a bit about discrimination, or not discrimination, rejection, I mean, so now to go from that side to how you can improve your applications, how you can turn those rejections into a positive thing for yourself to move forward to improve and find your dream job, hopefully. The first thing is get your application toolbox ready. This is including things like your CV, your cover letter. You really want to make sure that you've got those ready, so that the moment that dream job comes up or the moment you have a networking opportunity, you can provide that information. You're not thinking, oh, I now need to spend hours setting up a new CV or something like that. You've got a few things ready. So here's some tips about that. One thing that's becoming really important are transferable skills. Nina also already mentioned transferable skills. This is a big deal when moving to a new market, especially. And I think it's often, people don't think about this because you're thinking about the things that you have done, your experience, how you're going to move to a new country. And it's not as apparent to think of the things that you have that might be able to be applied in a different setting. So this can be both hard skills, like those things listed here, language proficiency, for instance, or computer skills, software knowledge, accounting, anything like that that has had to do with your actual career or education path. It can also be soft skills like communication, creativity, teamwork. Those things I think are even they're really popular in the Dutch market, at least. Often they're looking both for work experience as well as a click with the company and with the colleagues. And so soft skills can make a huge difference in that area. So you want to make sure that you're really thinking about this, doing some self-reflection and looking into that. You can also look for soft skills, especially there are lists online, because sometimes it's difficult to think about yourself and figure out, what exactly you have to offer that's not visible on a certificate. So you can look through those lists online and find what applies to you and what you think will be helpful in the job career that you're looking for. And you can even find lists of what are the most trending soft skills in 2022, for instance, so that you can make sure that you appeal to the hiring managers of today. Of course, don't lie. So if communication is not your strong point, the lists of soft skills go on and on. So don't choose communication if that's really not your strong point. Because you're going to have to be able to back it up in an interview and in your work. So make sure that you're being honest, but also give yourself some credit and look through that and make sure that that's apparent to in your application. Another thing that's becoming increasingly important is social media. So this is also part of your toolbox that you can have ready to go, is get your social media ready, set up your profiles. LinkedIn is, of course, the most important for networking and for your job search. But actually, all of the other ones are becoming, you can even find job tips and recruiters looking for people on TikTok today. So you can get creative with that, but make sure that any profile you're using for your job search, that you have created it and made it up to date and professional enough. So that's a big tip, and make sure that it's updated and matches your CV, so that if you send in a CV, it's not going to be different than your LinkedIn, and the hiring manager is going to wonder what's going on there. So you can also use social media to network. So follow your top companies online or get involved in groups that are in your sector. Keep adding people to your network, because you never know who will be connected to who, and that it will work out nicely. And make sure that if you're looking for a job, that you turn on the button that says you're visible for recruiters to find you. And another tip for that is to add it in your subtext as well, that says open for a new challenge, because often recruiters do a text search on LinkedIn as well, and they'll come across you that way. So social media can really help you to get in contact with new opportunities, as well as to show your skills. So we already went over a lot of these CV do's and don'ts. I just want to highlight a couple again, because interestingly, the CV do's and don'ts are very similar to what the recruiters, what bothers recruiters, and what like Nina talks about. So one of the biggest things is you want to keep it short and simple. You want to make sure that your formatting is clear and that everything is going to make sense when someone looks over it. Really, what you want to do with a CV is make sure that a recruiter picks it up twice. So you want it to have keywords on it. You want it to have really clear formatting. You want it to be simple enough that it's not a novel that they have to read through, but include enough interesting information that they want to call you to talk about it. That's kind of the balance of a CV, is not writing everything you've ever done, but making sure that you hit the important points so that a recruiter wants to learn more, because then they'll invite you for a conversation. So you'll get this presentation later, and you can go through some of the specific bullet points to make sure your CV matches that. But the most important thing is to have it give a good impression of you, and to have it be very clear. The CV can be a bit creative, just to show, you can choose the color you want, and you can make it show who you are. Maybe some people add a few graphics or things like that. That's up to you. It's also up to your experience, and if you're up to that. But make sure the most important thing is that it comes across clearly, that you include your work experience, your education experience, and the skills that you have that you're bringing to the table. Your cover letter, one more thing about CVs actually, which applies to cover letters as well, is you're going to want to make a template for that. So your CV will pretty much be set, but it's possible, say for instance, sometimes people are applying for both customer service and sales support roles. You might have a couple different versions that highlight a few different keywords on each of those versions. So you can set those up ahead of time, have a template ready, so that when you find the role, you don't have to adjust very much. And that applies to cover letters as well. I always suggest to create a template for yourself for your cover letter. Cover letters really don't have to be long. It's really just a chance to show a bit more about yourself in a bit more personal way, and also to make sure that that they get the information and understand why you're applying. So it really needs to be short. Just a brief introduction of what position you're applying for and why, maybe a couple examples of what you've done in the past that makes you a suitable candidate, and of course then your enthusiasm and motivation for why you want to be there and why they should pick you. That's really all you need in a cover letter. So what I often advise is put it together ahead of time. And then you also have time to have people look over it. And then of course, when you apply for a new position, you may change out one of the experiences that's there. You may change out, you'll of course change out the job description because you're applying for something else, but you don't have to type a whole new cover letter every time. This is also my advice because they're not always read, as sad as that sounds. And I know there's a lot of hours that go into this and a lot of effort, but they don't always get read. Often recruiters read them in the situation that they're really excited about your your CV and therefore they want to read your cover letter as well, or the other way around where they're a little bit doubting about your CV and they want to be convinced by your cover letter. But a lot of other parts in between, they don't get read, or they get read at a later stage. So that's why I also say, don't spend 4 hours the night before putting it together. Make sure that you've done it once, you have your template, and then you just adjust it so that it applies to the job, but so that you're using your time efficiently throughout your application process. So a few more tips for pumping up your resume, because of course we've talked about rejection and some of the challenges with finding a new job, but of course it's always nice to have some concrete points of what you can work on and what you can do differently. So a big one is trainings and courses. This is becoming even more popular, of course, with all the things that have gone online. So number one tip is keep learning. Even if you're struggling, even if you're getting a lot of rejections or you're working in a different sector than you used to work in, our advice is always keep learning. That always looks good to a recruiter if you've been spending your time wisely. I've had people who moved to the Netherlands and weren't able to find a job right away, but then decided to do some volunteer work and follow some courses. And that shows up really nicely on the CV. Even if the course is not exactly relevant to what they end up doing after that, it shows that they're a motivated person, that they like to keep learning, that they're willing to try new things. It really can show a lot of those soft skills and a lot of the things you have to offer just by putting on your CV that you're continuing to improve yourself. So that's my number one point on that. And then that's actually point number two as well, is to include it on your CV. It depends a little bit on what you're doing, because for instance, if during the lockdown during Corona, you were studying how to become a better baker, but then you're applying for something that's not at all related to that, use your discretion on whether or not to include that on your CV. Or what I would suggest is include it on your CV, but make sure to highlight the points of that are relevant to what you're doing. So for instance, time management, for instance, or things that come into play that you learned throughout that course. So some common trainings that can really boost your CV are things like they can have to do with soft skills. So training for teamwork, training for listening skills or communication skills. Communication is really a big one right now. So that's a good one to keep in mind and to watch out for. IT training is also a big one, so that's a bit more of the hard skills side, but IT trainings, anything in that area, digital marketing, things like that. So what I would recommend is look into where you want to go, and then look up some trainings that have to do with that. And some of them can be soft skills, some of them can be hard skills, some might be more specific than others, but have a reason for why you're doing it. That's what I mentioned down below. Think of your why. So are you usually what you want to think is what is it you're trying to improve? In what scenario are you going to be able to apply that, and how are you going to show that in your application process? Because of course it's a shame if you do a whole course and you really learn a lot and you have a lot to offer to a company, but you're not able to translate that into your application process, because that's where you need to show them what's going on. So think about that when you're doing the training as well, especially because some trainings have certificates and some don't. So think about how you're going to put that in your application process. And you can always ask for help with that as well, or see if a recruiter has an opinion to help you get started with that too. You also, when you're looking for courses, there's a lot of options online. I know Google Academy and LinkedIn have options. Some things are free, some things are not, so you need to do a little bit of searching for that. But you can also, there's a lot of fun things you can do. Also a lot of apps like Duolingo, and for instance, a lot of specific software programs or specific things that are used, for instance, in marketing. They have at least a basic course that is free. So I've done that for Canva, for instance, which is a design software, and also for ActiveCampaign, which is an email marketing software. So of course, it's mostly the basics, but that really helps, especially if you're trying to break into a new market or find out what it is you like to do. Then you can look up those specific programs that are used within that market and see if they have that available. So keep in mind, it's helpful, of course, if the course you're doing fits your interests. So if it's at least loosely related and you want to do it, that helps. If it improves transferable skills, of course, specific can also be helpful, like learning to program in C++. But but transferable skills can maybe be more helpful when you're entering a new market, just because you're not exactly sure what's going to be available, and then you can put it on your CV for different types of opportunities. And of course, is future-proof, something that you're going to be able to use in the future. If you're learning to program floppy disks at this moment, that might, I don't know if everyone even knows what that is, but they're basically not in use anymore. So that might not be as future-proof as learning how to program or learning digital marketing, for instance. So think about what's going on in the market, and make sure that what you're doing is going to set you up to have some unique selling points for yourself when you go into the application process. Now, a few things about communication, because this is extremely important in the application process. This might seem like a no-brainer, but especially along with the rejection, what Nina said, sometimes communication can really get you can get in your own way. We know it's frustrating to get rejected. I've also been on job searches before starting at Untouchables, and sometimes it takes longer than you think it's going to, and you get told no when you think you would have been the perfect candidate. So this communication really plays a big role, though, in how much people are going to be on your side. In Dutch, they call that the gunfactor. So basically, if they want to help you or not, and if they want that for you. And like Nina said, recruiters are also humans. We're doing the best we can, and you're going to get a long way if you're going to communicate in a professional and kind way. So a couple things to keep in mind. There are 4 types of professional communication. You've got verbal, so that one's kind of obvious, for instance, spoken, talking on the phone, anything like that. You've got nonverbal, that has more to do, sometimes that's conscious and sometimes it's not, more with your gesturing or your facial expressions, even your posture and your eye contact. So that's another way that you're communicating. With your written communication, so often in the first stages, that's email and your CV and your cover letter, and those are the first impressions that you often have, because verbal and nonverbal typically come at a later stage when you have an interview. So written is a good one to focus on, and visual is becoming more and more important along with that social media side of things, YouTube, all of those things, but that can also be applied to your CV or your way of presenting yourself. So make sure that that also conveys what you want it to convey. And keep in mind that verbal does not just have to do, in fact, all of these don't just have to do with what you say, but also has to do with how you say it. So if you're on the phone with someone and you think you're saying something that shouldn't be taken wrong, keep in mind that your tone and your pitch and even culture can play a role in that. So try to be aware of that, even when it's frustrating, especially when it's frustrating, maybe, because I have had people who got a rejection and ended up screaming on the phone and writing angry emails. And as much as they may have had a great CV, it makes a recruiter much less confident to work with them or to introduce them to a company who we also have a relationship with, because we've seen that there is a lack of communication skills there. I've also had people who had less promising CVs, but were so good in communication and so professional and so willing to learn that companies were really excited about them, regardless of the lack of skills sometimes. So communication can really bridge some gaps or burn bridges. So keep that in mind with how you're handling things. A quick point about the Dutch communication style. Dutch communication style is often really honest and direct. Equality is important, so there's not a lot of hierarchy. That's really nice, because you can then say what you need to say to whoever you need to say it to. The positive and negative Dutch communication often is not as complimentary, but basically if there's silence, everything is fine. If something needs to be addressed, they're going to bring it up to you. So keep that in mind. And if you're I'm more of an optimist and someone who thrives on positive communication, you may need to ask for that, but that directness and honesty comes back in there as well. And different regions can have different communication styles, but you'll come across that depending on where you end up. But just keep in mind that with this, with recruiters in the Netherlands as well, that honesty and directness are also valued, but keep that professional tone. So feel free to say what you need to say, but make sure that you're using professional wording and professional tone so that you keep them on your side. So communication tips, we already talked about a lot. Stay professional. I think I've said that now like 5 times. So in case you didn't think it was important, here's the last time. stay professional in your communication. Be yourself as well, especially in an interview and as you're going through the process. It's really important to make sure that you're letting your personality shine through. Of course, you want to be professional, but it's also good to let them see who you are, because they're looking for the click as well. And as a recruiter, for instance, we're looking for a click with the company. We know what the people who work there, we know how the team works. So it's better for you and for them if we know who you really are. Speak your mind, as I mentioned, so that you can communicate with Dutch recruiters and Dutch hiring managers. As Nina also mentioned, don't take things too personally. That directness is not usually meant as a criticism, or, well, depending on what it is, but it's usually meant just to make sure that things are out in the open and everyone is on the same page. So if you get quite direct feedback or rejection, don't take it too personally. Being on time might not sound like a communication piece, but it really is, because if you're not going to be on time, you should send a message. That's always, I know that can be different per culture, but in the Netherlands, that's really important. So that's a good one to keep as a pro tip, that be on time wherever possible. If you're not going to be on time, send a message, even if it's just 5 minutes, because that shows that you're professional, you're on top of things, and that's valued by the Dutch hiring managers. That goes along with keep your commitments, of course. And another thing you can do is share your culture. That goes along with being yourself. And this is even true in the hiring process. Show those things that make you special. Show those things that are where you come from. That can be really helpful to help people know that you're also a human and to see what you have to offer. And as we've talked about, remember that the person on the other side is also a human. That means a couple of things. That means that we can react emotionally as well, so be kind. And it also means that mistakes are possible. So if you think, hey, I applied for this and it really seemed like the perfect position for me, don't call and say, how dare you reject me? But you can feel free to send a message or call and say, hey, would you mind telling me exactly what it was that didn't match? Because I saw that this point and this point matched and that I have this experience. And maybe that recruiter missed something, or maybe that wasn't clear in your CV. And if you handle it in that way, then it can still be handled positively. So a couple quick last tips. I know we're getting a little bit past time, so but I'll do my best to do this quickly so we can move on to the Q&A. And tailor your application. This is one of the best things you can do to stand out in a pile of CVs for an application. I know I just mentioned, maybe this sounds opposite because I just mentioned having templates ready, but the beauty of templates is that you can tailor them when you find a position. So the best way to do that is to research the company. So follow them on LinkedIn, see what kind of news stories they post, check their website, see what's important to them, what's missing, and network with people that work there, even if you can. Because what that will do is give you a better idea of what's important to the company, maybe even what's important to the hiring manager if you're able to network with them or view them on LinkedIn, so that when you send in your application, you can gear it towards that. You can highlight that in your motivation letter. You can even say, for instance, I've seen on your website that you value a personal approach, and I do too, because in my previous experience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That can be really helpful. So you're going to adjust both your documents, adjust your CV, adjust your cover letter, as we mentioned, be honest, but highlight your skills. And the best way to do that is to use keywords. So when you come across the job description, often it will say, looking for someone who's worked in customer service, for instance. If the words customer service are used, try to put those in your CV if it applies. So like, for instance, if you worked as a customer support representative, make sure that somewhere in there you can even change that to customer service, or you can put it in underneath to say performed customer service task, something like that, just as long as you have those words, but in an organic way, and not that you just write them. I know sometimes people try to trick AI by just putting customer service everywhere. That's not very helpful, because that might work on AI, but it's not going to work on a human recruiter. But make sure that you still are honest, but that you use those keywords, because that's going to help you get through that first phase and help the recruiter check your application, double check your CV, read through your cover letter, that kind of thing. So we're now to the Q&A. We made it. I think we have some questions in the chat. We have about 10 minutes for the Q&A, so we can handle some questions from the chat. And if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand if you're okay speaking out loud. Keep in mind, of course, that this session is being recorded and will go on YouTube as well. So if you're not comfortable being visual or having your voice on there, then you can put it in the chat. But if that doesn't bother you, then feel free to just raise your hand and let us know. And if you have any specific questions for either Nina or I, let us know when you ask them as well. And otherwise, we'll just both jump in to answer your questions. Oh, Nina, you're muted still.
Yes, I would start then with a question that was like in the beginning. Is it okay to have a international phone number on the CV? Yes, of course, but please put the number code of your country in front of it. Otherwise it could come to confusion. Yeah,
great one. And actually that kind of adds on to another one that came shortly after that, which was, can I add information to the CV about that I can legally work in the Netherlands? And if yes, then where? That's a great question, because of course, with the discrimination things, you don't want to have that get in the way. What I often advise people to do is put in possession of work permit, or not in need of sponsorship, or even in need of sponsorship if you're not allowed to work in the Netherlands, or you can put allowed to work in the Netherlands, something along those lines. So you don't have to specify what type of visa you have necessarily, but just let us know whether you're able to start tomorrow or not. And you can add that in the personal information section. So you don't have to say what country you're from, what type of visa you have, but you can just say allowed to work in the Netherlands, or you can say in need of sponsorship, something like that.
Then there was a question if it's okay to have a CV that is 2.5 pages long, because you have over 7 years of experience. In my opinion, that is okay, as long as you take care or make sure that the relevant information is there. It's not too long, and the description is on point. I think then that is totally okay if the experience is relevant. But if it's not, then just leave out the ones that are not relevant for this specific job.
Yeah, nice. Russell, I see that you've raised your hands. You can go ahead.
Yes, I have indeed. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a quick question about applying and also looking for accommodation at the same time, because I'm currently applying and my girlfriend wants to move to either Utrecht or Amsterdam. And okay, we're looking, but I'm thinking in order to get accommodation, you probably need a job. So it would make sense to probably get a job first. Is that right? Or just be looking in parallel, really? I think in terms of preparation.
Good question. Yeah, this is kind of the vicious cycle of coming from outside of the Netherlands, of course. And in fact, I think in general, if you're an expat moving somewhere else, this is one of the vicious cycles, because often a company wants to see that you're settled here. But in order to get settled here, you, of course, need to have money to settle here and a place to be, because also you might settle in a different place. So my advice is typically, if you're able to be here first, that usually goes over better with employers in the Netherlands for some reason. They like to see the stability. So if there's any possibility for you to come, even, have a temporary housing situation, but so that you can have an address in the Netherlands, that often I have seen that be helpful to people. I get that that's not always possible or ideal. There are plenty of companies who also understand that and are willing to wait for you to relocate. But then what you can often do is make sure that it's clear to the recruiter, maybe even on your CV, how long it would take you to relocate. So I know, you can put your notice period, but as well as able to move within 3 weeks, a month, something like that, so that it's clear throughout your application process what the expectation is.
No, I think that's a really good point. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Then Imran asked about he's from Dubai, and how are the chances to get a job here as an overseas candidate and applying through online, I think, yeah, we talked about it before. The chances are there if you have a valid work visa, or you know how to get it, and there's a clear plan behind it. But I can tell you, unfortunately, it is more challenging as if you would already be here. But it's important that you know which visa you can get. So do your research there and make sure the recruiter knows also about this plan then.
Yeah, nice. Anastasia, I see that you also have your hand up. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, first of all, for presentation. Very helpful.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah, nice presentation. Yes, I have a question, maybe a bit similar to previous one, but I have a passport of a non-EU country, but I also have a resident card in Poland. So
Okay.
I'm resident now in Poland, which is in this card is connected with my job.
Oh,
but
yeah.
also
Okay.
it's valid if I'm leaving this job. So technically I can enter the Netherlands and then apply to a job. But I was trying to apply online, and there were some interviews when people know that I need documents, like help with documents. They tell that unfortunately we cannot proceed with your application. I know that it's a bit easier if I have this resident card, but still I just wanted to ask, like, what are the chances, or it's possible or not possible? Yes.
Yeah, understand. Yeah, good question. I think this is also a question that several people have probably.
Yeah.
It of course depends on your individual situation. The chances are a bit less if you're in need of a work permit, just because often a vacancy that's available at that moment is also, they need someone to start as soon as possible. And if you have to do all of the paperwork, that can be more difficult. Another big reason is because the company has to be able to sponsor and be willing to sponsor. And being able to sponsor, not every company is registered as a sponsor, so not everyone is able to sponsor at this point in time. And also, of course, some companies are more happy to do that and other companies are more hesitant. So that depends a bit. So usually what I would advise to someone in your situation is take a look at the IND site, because there's a list of companies that are sponsors and that are able to be sponsors. And that doesn't guarantee that they'll be willing to sponsor, but it does mean that they have sponsored before or have been willing to sponsor before and that they're capable of doing it. So that's a good place to start, is you can network with them and apply to those positions. And also maybe when you start an application process, ask it early in the process. I know that feels weird maybe because you feel like you're getting in your own way, but often it's nicer to know at the beginning if they're going to be able to provide sponsorship or not, rather than get to the end and realize that you've put a lot of time into something that might not work out.
Yes, thank you very much for advices. And one more short question. Is it long time to do this working permission?
It depends on the type of visa you have. So some take a bit longer. I think the typical amount of time is about 3 months though.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
it can be a bit shorter or longer depending, but that's quite typical.
Okay, thank you very much. And the last question, I promise. And is it typical situation when the companies provide the working permission to like customer service, or it should be like manager or something higher than just customer service?
Yeah, it's often a higher position, also because the sponsorship has a certain minimum salary requirement that's quite high. So it's often higher positions. However, it depends. Sometimes for customer service, you see it if it's like quite a specialized language position or a specialized sector. So it's possible, but usually more higher paying positions at least.
Thank you very much. And what is approximately these high requirements, like payments?
Yeah, I should know that off the top of my head, but it's been changed recently. I think around 3,500 per month gross, as I remember. But it also depends on age a little bit, so it's not the same across the boards. But you can find that on the IND website as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I will
Yeah,
search.
you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Roberta, you also had your hand raised?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, hi, Nina and Robert. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Yes, I do have a question about experience. So I am a fashion designer and I mainly work in women's wear, but I'm actually applying for production development, kids wear and merchandising because this is something I've done, but my profile doesn't match 100% with this position.
Right. Yeah.
I would love to know how can I share and explain my experience in the best way, even if I'm not really an expert about it.
Yeah, good point. Well, like you said, you have done those things. I would make sure to use the exact wording and put it under the job description where you were able to get that experience. So even if that wasn't your expertise, maybe put it as a bullet point underneath of gained training in this area, or worked for 6 months in this department, or exploring this department, so that you show that you have an affinity with it, and maybe pull out some of those skills that you learned there as well. So some of them can be more specific pertaining to your industry, but also maybe skills of management or things that you've learned that will be more applicable in the new position that you're applying for, and that might not be obvious from your old position automatically.
Okay, and can I ask something else, or?
Sure.
Yeah. I would love to work for Scotch and Soda, for example, and I have a friend that gave me a contact that is actually working there, but I really don't know how to approach a person that work inside the company bypassing the HR.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, LinkedIn can be really helpful for that, because on LinkedIn you can go to Scotch and Soda, for instance, and then look at people that work at Scotch and Soda, and then you can usually see their job description. Not everyone has their LinkedIn up to date, but then you can link with people, and when you send the request, you can also put a note to say, hey, I'm really interested in working at Scotch and Soda and would like to learn a bit more about it. Do you have time for a call, or could you message me back about these questions, something like that. And you can see what kind of response you get, because that might help you to get more contact with a different department before starting your actual application process with HR.
Okay, thank you a lot for your help.
Yeah, no problem. Good luck.
Thanks.
Yeah. Let's see. I see we have a lot of questions in the chat, so I'm gonna go for about 5 minutes and see how far we get with the questions. And if not, of course, you can always email us later, and we're happy to help with individual questions as well. I saw that we have a couple of questions about including the gap in your CV. To Christine, who asked about if it was 10 years ago. No, if you've had a career experience since then, you don't have to include it. You can, but that gap becomes less and less important as time goes on. But the best way you can include a gap, or you can include a gap, is because you don't want to have a break in your CV that's unexplained. So what you can do is put the years in there, and then just explain a bit about what you were doing. You don't have to get too personal. You know, if you were caring for a sick loved one, you don't have to say what the situation was, but you can say took a break to care for a sick loved one, or took maternity leave, or something like that. But often what's really helpful is if you can also include what you did during that time, or skills you gained during that time. So even if it was caring for a sick loved one, you could even say, learned some things about managing time, or whatever it is that you learned during that period, or if you volunteered at something during that period. Things that you might not normally include on your CV, you can include during a break. But don't make it a really long thing, just a couple little short explanations to show people you didn't fall off the face of the earth. You were active, you were doing things, you were doing something worthwhile. And it's not something that they should be worried about. That's really the best thing to do. And if you have a gap in your CV that you need suggestions about, go ahead and email us, because then we can give you some advice on how you can put that into your CV in the best way. I'm just looking through the chat because I see we have quite a few.
to answer Allah. You said that you were rejected even though you live in Hoofddorp, and that's less than 15 kilometers away from the company. Yeah, it is that companies can state a specific radius, and they can have several reasons why that is required for the job. So that can happen. Of course, I don't know the details there, but yeah, that can be stated from the company and can have several reasons.
Nice. Yeah, thanks. I saw also a question about the weight of LinkedIn versus a CV. That depends a bit on the company. I know that that's a vague answer, but whether your LinkedIn is more important or the CV is more important to them, that depends a bit on the company. Typically, as recruiters, the CV is more important to us, and the LinkedIn, it's important for it to be updated. So I always see LinkedIn as more of a networking opportunity and the CV as your official document. That depends a bit on the company. So it's not that everyone has the same opinion that I do, but I do see that a lot in the recruitment world, that they do like to see your official experience. You can often personalize your CV a bit more than you can personalize LinkedIn because it has a specific format. So if you are hesitant of LinkedIn, like you said here, the best thing you can do is then just keep it simple, but make sure it's in line with your CV, and then add all the additional things on your CV itself.
Yeah, and there was also the question, do you check LinkedIn and the CV? I do personally, and also a lot of other recruiters in our company I know do it. And that is also because you might be a bit longer in our database, and then we look around who could be interested in open positions, and then we contact you. And then it could be that your CV is a bit older. So I check on LinkedIn if you have like a current position with a new employer, for example. Or new skills that you attained, and also to see if you're maybe not even interested in the position anymore because you switched to a complete other area. So yeah, that we do. Probably not all of us, but some do it at least. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And one more quick LinkedIn question: that if a job advertisement is in Dutch, would you say the jobs are expecting the candidates are fluent in Dutch? Yes, most likely, unless reading through, but of course that becomes difficult since it's in Dutch. So occasionally they say that they need English, but usually if they've written it in Dutch, they need English and Dutch. So that you can stay away from and find the ones that are written in English, or contact the company specifically to find out if that is necessary, or run it through Google Translate. But typically I would say the language that the job description is written in is going to be required for your application as well. So I think that's it. And we're now at 5:20. So thanks everyone for being willing to stay a bit longer and participate in the Q&A. We got some great questions. If you have more questions, feel free to send us an email. I see Maria just sent one at the last minute. Sorry, I didn't see it in time, Maria, but feel free to send it to us on our emails. Our emails are really easy. It's nina@untouchables.nl or aubrey@untouchables.nl, and you can find them on the website on our Contact Us page as well. You will all receive the recording and the slides within a week of this webinar in your email, so you can go back and look at them. And feel free to get in touch with us if you have any questions. But thanks again for being here. Thanks for participating and for all of your great questions. And we hope to see you again at our future events.
Yeah, thank you also from me. Enjoy your evenings. It was nice having you. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Likewise, thanks
Have a
very
nice
much.
evening.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.